MOBAs are the most divisive game genre. For millions, it's an obsession. For everyone else, it's a mystery. How can anyone enjoy this, one might ask themselves? It's a fair question. They're not easy games to get into. Heroes, items, towers, lanes. It's a winning recipe for two of the world's largest esports. Every day, millions log on to Dota 2 and League of Legends, and they're some of the most streamed games on Twitch. Success is evident. A winning recipe for two, and an absolute disaster for every other competitor. Many have tried, but nobody has been able to retain an audience against these two titans. One of them being operated by Valve. Valve is currently working on a project called Deadlock. Occult aesthetics, unique characters, intuitive third-person gameplay, 171,000 peak concurrent players during its closed playtest. Impressive. There's just one problem. It's a MOBA. Everyone has that friend who only plays League of Legends or Dota that at one point tried to get them into it. But it just doesn't click. What does my character do? What items do I buy? What the hell? This guy's doing so much damage to me. Okay, now I'm dead. This guy is angry at me in chat. What do you mean I was in jungle? This game sucks. It's usually how things go. MOBAs are not for the faint of heart. Intense, highly competitive, punishing. These games are vampiric at heart, draining all the time from those that choose to play them. Its players seemingly trapped in the respective game, sometimes breaking free, but always returning. Like a smoker trying to quit. So, what does this mean for Deadlock? On the surface, it's an ambitious new game that looks and feels like a third-person shooter, but under the hood, it has that MOBA DNA. Everyone else has failed to break the mold of the genre, so many dismiss this game off the bat. But this is Valve. They don't commit to making a game unless it's worth their time. So the million-dollar question is, can Deadlock find success between this tug-of-war of two industry titans? Can it solve why you just can't get into MOBAs? The answer starts in the genre's roots. 1998, Britney Spears, Saving Private Ryan, StarCraft. Bloody battlefields of intergalactic war between three factions brought millions of players together. Real-time strategy, or RTS, became the de facto activity in internet cafes and online tournaments alike, and it started with StarCraft. It wasn't the first RTS to be played on the computer, but it was equally compelling and deep, allowing for a wide range of strategies with its finely tuned selection of units and buildings. Terrans, Zerg, and Protoss gather resources, create buildings, and raise armies to be the last one standing. Each race with their own combinations of infantry, air, and vehicles, each with key advantages and disadvantages. The Zerg rush to amass swarms, Protoss builds expensive quality units, and Terrans sit somewhere between. The game is fast, exciting, and deep. Very deep. There's an incredible complexity to StarCraft-style RTS, and good players make difficult decisions in fractions of a second. There's a lot going on, so StarCraft came with its own campaign to show you the ropes and teach you the fundamentals. Resource management, multitasking, and efficiency. These elements are the bedrock for almost every esport game today, and you can thank RTS for single-handedly creating the demand for the industry. That, and South Korea, who adopted StarCraft as a massive cultural phenomenon by 2002.
Show me what's the most popular game in Korea. That's what I want to see. StarCraft.
You can click on it.
Now, you might be thinking, what does any of this have to do with MOBAs? It's a fair question. MOBA is a subgenre of RTS, and competitive RTS as we know it today began with StarCraft. Much of its DNA is inherent to the game. It's just been reorganized. It's here in 2002 that a modder by the name of Gunner Forever created a custom map called Aeon of Strife, the first reorganization of RTS's core principles into the first primitive MOBA. 3 lanes. That's all there was to the map. No buildings, no SCVs, no bases. You just command a hero unit, as the mod calls it, your primary income generation, and fight in the lanes with your friendly AI waves. Each enemy unit you kill grants you a small amount of minerals. used to buy your own units and upgrade your hero. The goal being to push your lane to the end and destroy the enemy base. Sound familiar? It's still RTS, but reimagined as a constant tug of war, where enemy waves are both resources to be gathered and obstacles to be overcome. It's dated, of course. Your hero will frequently get sandwiched between friendly units and enemy units where it gets mauled to death, easily wiping out an hour of progress. And you need to keep one unit at base to buy new ones, and everything is purchased through random buildings from the base game. Not exactly a lot of fun to play, and it's janky, but it's a mod, a creative one at that. I don't think Gunner Forever knew what they had created here. This is it. Little map that kickstarted an entire genre. But it's not quite a MOBA, is it? Aeon of Strife is a foundation, and later that year Warcraft 3 would build upon it. If you thought StarCraft was complex, it only gets more complicated. Warcraft 3 would follow the core design principles of StarCraft while introducing the idea of heroes. Units that gain XP, level up, use skills, and can carry items. Build workers, build soldiers, then lead those soldiers with the hero. Warcraft 3 also featured pockets of neutral enemies called camps and areas of neutral territory called jungles. These points of interest could be raided for extra resources. Shortly after the release of the game in 2002, a modder by the name of Yul had the idea to port Aeon of Strife over and take advantage of the game's new features. This new map he would call Defense of the Ancients. A fitting name. With Defense of the Ancients, the MOBA was born. Stripped away were Warcraft 3's broader additions, leaving only the core of Aeon of Strife. No base building, no economy to manage, just a single hero per player on each team of 5. This is how Defense of the Ancients worked. Each team share one fortified base, facing off against its opponent across 3 lanes. These lanes are defended by pre-constructed towers and populated by endlessly spawning waves of minions. The goal is the same as Aeon of Strife: push forward, survive, and destroy the enemy stronghold. Progress came not through harvesting resources, but through combat. Gold is earned by killing enemy minions or by venturing into the wilderness, i.e. the jungle, between lanes where neutral camps gave bonus coin and XP. Then players would go back to their base, level up their abilities, and buy items to get stronger. See, it's still Warcraft 3, but all the elements were rearranged. No base building, no building workers, only hero gameplay. This was the foundation of the genre. Streamlined strategy distilled into a contest of individual skill, teamwork, and momentum. In StarCraft and Warcraft 3, the player's focus is always on expansion. You begin with a single base, then establish a second, and often a third. With each new outpost comes more structures to build, units built from those structures, and workers to direct near those bases' resources. Complexity is external, spread across the map and multiplied with every decision. The player's mind is like a CPU, with multiple cores and threads focused on separate things happening outside of your field of view. Keeping up with the cognitive demand is the key underlying skill of traditional real-time strategy. This is where the reorganization comes into play. By contrast, MOBAs collapsed all of this into a singular focus: heroes. That's it. Instead of choosing which units to train or buildings to construct, the player instead decides which items to buy and where to position themselves. Complexity is internal. The early game is always straightforward. Secure your lane and push against the first enemy tower, a checkpoint that defines the opening of the game. Beyond this, however, the game opens up. Stronger towers demand cooperation, and so the player faces new decisions. Should you rotate to assist a teammate struggling with their lane? Should you farm the jungle for additional gold and experience? Continue pressing forward, or attempt to ambush an opponent in hostile territory? The options are plentiful, and in scope, they mirror the choices of traditional real-time strategy. The structure was simply reorganized. Defense of the Ancients grew too big to stay just a humble map forever. Different additions converged into Dota All-Stars in 2003, making it its own complete mod. But still it grew, and at a tipping point, its developers split. Some formed Riot and built League of Legends in 2009. Others joined Valve to create Dota 2 in 2013. That's how we ended up with the two titans, League and Dota, each drawing from the same well of All-Stars veterans, locking down the genre ever since. But here's the deal with MOBAs, specifically the Dota All-Stars offshoots, and it's a pain point rarely addressed. Every good real-time strategy game, StarCraft, Warcraft 3, Dawn of War, Supreme Commander, even Halo Wars, has a campaign. And that campaign assumes you don't know how to play the game. The first mission is simple. Build a few basic units. From there, each mission introduces something new. More units, more structures, until the final mission where everything is unlocked and the challenge is yours to solve. Put simply, an RTS is taught to you through its game's campaign. Sure, once you finish it, you might get destroyed by other players in multiplayer, or even by the AI bots. But everyone has that same frame of reference. MOBAs, however, were born as a mod for Warcraft 3. They assume you already know that game's fundamentals. When League of Legends and Dota 2 came out, they just dropped you straight into the action. They were made for fans of Dota who knew how it all worked already. Why bother spending development time on a tutorial? Noted. But Warcraft 3 came out in 2002. That's 23 years ago now. That is simply too much time passed where there is no shared baseline of knowledge that would have been acquired through a campaign. It's like trying to run a society without basic education. The best practices are made by people already in the know. So the only way to learn today is through other players, guides, or trial and error. Don't believe me? This is game DNA, so let's put it to the test. Let's install both Dota 2 and League of Legends and play both as a first-timer trying to learn the ropes. We'll A, do the tutorial if they have one, B, see if their teachings are useful for a live match, and C, come to a conclusion based on the evidence. Let's start with League of Legends. My knowledge of the game is as far as a handful of clips online and the understanding that it's a MOBA. I've played strategy games and RTS throughout my life, but I have very limited experience with MOBAs comparatively. Before jumping into a live match, the game insists on completing a 3-act tutorial. Welcome to League, power up, and shop for gear. Actually, I mean the game window wants you to do that, because League's main menu is not actually part of the game, but rather more like a launcher. It's a vestigial organ that has not been updated since the game came out. Anyway, you would expect these 3 tutorials to be guided on-rails lessons on how to play League, but instead they're just regular bot matches with more of a theme than a strict lesson. After you win, the game rewards you with your first champion, but for some reason you don't get to use it for the other 2 tutorials. Instead, you're forced to use Misfortune. Fantastic. The next 2 tutorials teach you almost nothing, as you can just steamroll the bots without learning anything I want to know, like what my character does, what her abilities do, or what items I should buy. You can actually buy no items during the second match and still win, which is obviously not realistic to a live game. Also, let's talk about items real quick. There are so many. We have 16 different boots in League. Just boots. I got the idea of building an item pretty quick, but all of them have these little arbitrary stats attached to them. It just tells you that you can buy items, not how you should buy them or what they're good for. These 3 options mean nothing to me as a new player. Execute enemies, mana restoration, and crit amp. These all seem useful, but what is important? The individual category tabs are useful too, but I don't know what kind of character I'm playing. So far, the pieces do not fit together. Anyway, the tutorial is over and now it's time to move on to a live match. Ironically, I don't own Misfortune, even though she's the tutorial legend. Legend? Champion. Right, of course. Master Yi it is then. I don't know what he does, and there's no way to check from within the game, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Fortunately for me, it was fine. I got killed in lane a couple times by Akali, who threw knives and smoke, but I quickly got the hang of Yi. Pushed lane, did the jungles, paid attention to what my teammates were doing, and before I knew it, We ended the match with a victory, and I was MVP. I didn't really feel deserving of the win. I'm sure my build choices were very inefficient, and I probably would have gotten crushed by more competent opposition, but that was my experience with the League. Overall, League of Legends player onboarding experience sucks. Nothing important is explained to you by the game. Lazy would be a compliment. But fortunately, League isn't too deep, it's just wide. Lots to learn, and even more to discover. The verdict is that it's just not reasonable to expect a casual player to pick this game up or understand what's going on. Now, let's move on to Dota 2. How does this game fare? Dota 2's tutorial is better than League's, though that isn't saying much. At least Riot built theirs however long ago. Dota's was created by the community, later adopted by Valve and integrated into the game. It's more comprehensive. 4 pages of lessons that attempt to guide new players through the fundamentals. The effort is clear, and the handholding is genuine, but some of these tutorials are actually broken, bugged, and they're not possible to complete. Basic mechanics and mid-game progression both don't work. Not a great look so far. But if I had no idea how MOBAs played, this would be a good start. A good start, but by no means a comprehensive overview. This tutorial falls short as Dota 2 is not a standard MOBA. If League of Legends is wide but shallow, Dota 2 is both wide and deep. Every system more nuanced, and with every choice more consequence. After doing the rather straightforward tutorial, it was straight to a standard match. I picked Hoodwink on a whim, and was off to the races. Unfortunately, the tutorial did not prepare me for my first match. That's what, level 45? That's level 1? We're gonna get crushed, man. Items are just as unintuitive as League, while somehow offering more confusing choices. I got no explanation as to the difference between consumables, attributes, equipment, miscellaneous, and secret shop. So I just went with the automatic Dota Plus guide options. But those didn't really do me any good either, really. I still had no idea what I was actually building for my character or what they were supposed to do. All I know is that Hoodwink is an agility character, and I chose her because she looked cool, unlike many of these other characters. Sniper, Axe, Anti-Mage. Come on. You could have at least given these guys a name. Some of these are really cool, but others are just boring. You think there's any fan art for this guy? Not likely. The subsequent match was a good blend of interesting characters, but I couldn't tell you what they do at a glance, or how they built items, or what I should be looking for. Obviously, Axe is going to use his giant axe, so I should probably stay away from him. But the others are a complete mystery. The resulting match was an absolute stomp from the other team, as we had no idea what we were doing, myself included. The enemy had great skill expression with wards and items and moving as a team, and it turns out that Hoodwink was more difficult than anticipated. Near the end, I was actually useless. After the match, I discovered that I didn't actually buy any items. Well, I did buy them, but they stayed in my stash for the entirety of the game while my inventory was being clogged up by unused consumables. No wonder I was doing nothing. Oops. It's funny, the tutorial works in principle, but Dota 2 is simply too complex for it to effectively teach people how to play a live game. Valve knows this and supplements it with external aids. There's a new player mode, an optional coach button in the interface, and machine learning item suggestions designed to guide decision making. But none of these training wheels fix core issues about how the game plays. They just hide parts of it away until you're ready for the real deal. New player modes don't fix a complicated game, they just teach players how to play a stripped down version of it. Machine learning item suggestions don't actually teach you how to choose items, they just delegate the thinking away from you. Now you might be thinking, well, Game DNA, you didn't play the game right because you didn't use a build. And to that I say, so what? At best, a build is a guideline, and at worst, a crutch. It's just a recipe for an endgame character, nothing more. They are important, don't get me wrong. They belong in MOBAs. But true play comes from being able to take a hero and just know what they need as the match evolves. You should be building your skills towards that, instead of constantly chasing builds. This is the genre's great barrier. Until you understand items, their effects, their synergies, their timing, if they have one, you'll be crushed by opponents who do. The gap is one of knowledge, not reflex. Remember, there's basically no onboarding, so the only way to gain this knowledge is friends, guides, YouTube, or trial and error. What other kind of game requires you to find a mentor just to get started? But then again, MOBAs are inherently a social game. Their very premise is the redistribution of complexity to teammates. What was once the burden of a single real-time strategy player is now divided across a team of 5. Most players queue alone, or with 1 or 2 friends. Unlike professional teams or dedicated clubs, they need to coordinate with strangers. This is the MOBA's meta challenge, not only to master the mechanics of your hero, but also to work with people you've never met. It's like playing a game of chess with 5 hands guiding the pieces. You're going to get into each other's way. This complexity also explains why League and Dota have stuck around for so long. New MOBAs pop up occasionally, but they never last. The reason is simple. The upfront cost of learning is immense. Once they're invested, people don't want to try something new. League of Legends and Dota retain their audiences precisely because competence, mere competence, demands hundreds if not thousands of hours of playtime to internalize dozens if not hundreds of heroes, items, and interactions. This library of game sense, once learned, is not easily abandoned on a whim. Why would you go to a different game where you start from scratch? In other games, mechanical skill is entirely transferable. If hypothetically a CS pro who mained Ops played Titanfall or TF2 or even Fortnite, then all the same flicking and adjusting muscle memories would apply. You see them swap games all the time too in the industry. Valorant and Counter-Strike are basically the same game, but Dota 2 and League of Legends? You never see that sentiment anywhere. It's right here in this core that we find the root of player toxicity. Players who have years and years of experience can play with people who are brand new, all smushed together. It's so easy to piss off a MOBA player. Just say something like, "What does my guy do?" And they'll blow up and deflate like an old tire. It's not really obvious when someone sucks at MOBA like it is in other genres. You can really only judge someone else's gameplay through how much money they're making and what items they buy, unless you're actually watching their screen. So it's easier to just distrust everybody. Everyone has their own idea of how to play the game in their head, and everyone thinks they're right. Let me put this simply in 2 points. The only way to learn how to play League or Dota is through others. Friends, guides, or your own sheer persistence. No campaign? Tough luck. Endure matches until you get good. But at the same time, items and characters often date back more than a decade. Many players have been using these systems for most of their adult lives, carrying knowledge inherited from earlier strategy games. These are the people you're playing against. The ones that came from RTS, or the ones that have been here since the beginning. And that's the problem. MOBAs have remained largely unchanged for over 20 years. What began in 2003 as Dota All-Stars, a mod for Warcraft 3, split into the 2 modern titans, League of Legends and Dota 2. But since then, the genre has seen virtually zero meaningful evolution. Without that foundation, the genre is nearly impenetrable. Someone who's never played Warcraft 3 simply won't see that MOBAs reframe resource gathering and army building into heroes and items. And unlike RTS unit archetypes, MOBAs demand understanding of items unique to each game, which results in the onboarding crisis you clicked on this video for. You're not crazy. The reason why you just can't get into MOBAs is because you have no help in actually understanding how to play the game. It's hard. This is a real-time strategy that has thrown you to the wolves. If you're a babyface newbie with no campaign, no structured tutorials, and no shared baseline of knowledge, How on earth are you supposed to tread water, let alone swim? The people that are still around today were either incredibly persistent or were taught by someone else. You can't expect someone to figure this out on their own. Yet, every other attempt at this genre have done just that and made the same critical mistake. They never teach their players how to play their game. So the cycle follows. Players pick up the game, don't know what to do or what to buy, get crushed, and then stop playing. Then, without an audience, the game died. This is the cycle Deadlock must escape. As I mentioned in the introduction, this game is different. At its core, it remains a MOBA. There are items, creeps, and towers. You're still pushing lanes towards a final objective. But unlike its peers, this title has something else. It's a true third-person shooter. And that single distinction opens up opportunities for the design to lean less into the weaknesses of the MOBA formula and more into the strengths of the shooter genre. Something that Gigantic didn't take advantage of enough. Because here's the reality. League of Legends and Dota 2 already dominate the MOBA landscape. Their markets are cemented. Players are not going to switch, period. So the key lies elsewhere. To succeed, this game must appeal to a third demographic, one that would never play a traditional MOBA, but will play a third-person shooter that incorporates MOBA elements. And I believe this is Valve's angle. After all, why make another MOBA simply to cannibalize Dota 2? It doesn't make sense. But a third-person shooter with MOBA DNA? That's different. That's fresh. That's Valve. To that end, there are a few things Deadlock needs if it's going to draw this audience in. At present, its reputation as a MOBA is an obstacle. That label alone carries the baggage of complexity, toxicity, and long matches, all of which are true as of the time of this recording. So it needs to streamline the MOBA formula as much as possible, trim the fat, and keep only the meat. Additionally, this game is overwhelming. It's all the technical demand of a shooter with all the cerebral demand of a MOBA. There's an immense amount of skill expression in third-person movement. Moving, aiming, jumping, sliding, that's a lot of brain work. So making it easier for players to handle the cognitive load to make decisions is priority. First, let's talk about items. Do you know what these 3 bow-related items from League do without reading the descriptions? If you said that the 2 bows increase attack damage and the quiver increases attack speed, you would be wrong. Yeah, the recurve bow increases attack speed, the quiver increases damage and crit chance, and the last whisper increases damage and armor penetration. That's obvious. Okay, now how about these 3 gun-related items from Deadlock? Yeah, you already know what these items do. Increase magazine size, slows enemy movement, and increases rate of fire. Deadlock's items are intuitive and unique. There are just 3 categories, and 4 tiers based on price. This is a fantastic model, and everything else about the game should follow this thought process. Not all of the items are easy to understand, but for the most part you actually know what you're buying, which saves you from having to go shoe shopping. This system is beyond refreshing. However, it's also not perfect. The current system lacks synergy between heroes and items. While open buildcraft is important to the identity of MOBAs, it's also led to increasingly restrictive metas. With each patch, only a handful of items make sense for certain heroes, while others are kind of nonsensical. Let's take Abrams for example. He's the game's poster character, a case-hardened, shotgun-wielding detective with a magic book shackled to his arm. You can build him to be a tank, further improving the effectiveness of his siphon life, a bruiser going full melee, or just a shotgunner buffing the hell out of his shotgun. Yet, under the current system, he can buy long range, an upgrade that increases the damage bullets do past 15 meters. Useless for shotguns. Similarly, in Furnace, the smooth-talking, fire-wielding barkeep can buy Cold Front, an ice-themed item that makes no thematic sense. I'm not suggesting items and builds should go away, but its strength needs to be brought closer with the heroes. I propose a solution that merges these 2 concepts together into a hero shop, with 2 overhauls to solidify Deadlock as an evolution of the genre. First, at this point the item shop is mostly going to stay as is. A ton of work has been put into it conceptually and technically, so there's little reason to rip it out and lay something brand new. No, instead we work with what we have. The 151 items in Deadlock are here to stay. 51 gun items, 52 vitality items, 48 spirit items. That's a ton of variables for someone to recall in the heat of the moment. We have a built-in build browser, but let's be real, most of these aren't very good. The daily most popular is what people use outside of making their own. But, like I said before, using someone else's build should not be a requirement for the game. Making decisions on your own should be the skill you're working towards. Instead of scrapping the shop or forcing everyone to copy builds, the game should showcase what's already working. I propose we use the data already gathered from all the builds and what people actually use to create a success bias for each individual character. For example, if people always buy close quarters for Abrams and win with that item, then that item should be visually flagged in the shop with an up arrow or a little star or something to show you that it's a solid choice. This would be a tiered system showing common picks, strong picks, and high win rate picks. Automatic, driven by data. Everything is still accessible to you, of course, but this visual set of training wheels would help guide players in making informed decisions. Then people can focus only on what's relevant and disregard the unimportant. Second, items usually have 2 functions. One that's obvious, and then a little stat bonus in the fine print. Restorative Shot gets you health from shooting enemies on cooldown, but why does it have plus 6% weapon damage tacked on? A more elegant solution would turn this second function, the stat boost, into a brand item according to the game's lore. Fairfax Industries, for instance, could produce items that universally boost weapon damage regardless of what the base item actually does. Make Restorative Shot's next bullet heal you, and also make it from Fairfax, which increases weapon damage. Is what I would say if Game DNA was a lesser channel. In reality, this is already the way the game works, but that may come as a surprise to some of you Deadlock fans watching. When you buy gun items, your base gun damage increases based on the amount of souls you've invested into that type. But a lot of people who play this game don't actually know that, and it's clear from the builds they put together. For example, Infernus is all about his afterburn. Once a target is ignited, you just need to keep resetting the proc so the target continues to burn. In this sense, you want to load up on spirit items to increase the ability's damage. However, a lot of Infernus builds go for gun-related items. These are the builds that lose games, because gun damage doesn't mean anything on Infernus compared to the power of afterburn. This is a clear onboarding issue, and even a game that's as well made as this still doesn't make it clear to the player how to best play the game. This isn't a sole Deadlock problem, as I've made clear. MOBAs suffer because they don't properly onboard players. Deadlock has the chance to change this. A campaign or mission-based primer could do for MOBAs what RTS campaigns did for their games. Layer mechanics gradually. Buying items, pushing lanes, fighting players, securing souls. The basics of a MOBA from the ground up. Where to go after winning lane, how to build your character. Then, once players know the basics, put them into a casual, low-stakes mode like League's ARAM. Work as a team to push one lane and defeat one tower. Use the new hero shop to guide players in learning what the catalog of items do and what the heroes they face are capable of. League of Legends is no lesser for ARAM, just as Deadlock should be no lesser for having a casual mode. Finally, part of what made Team Fortress 2 so successful was the Meet the Team ad campaign, which have all nearly become animation classics. Not only did these expose people to the game, but it inspired to play them too. Team Fortress 2 is easy enough to play to not need lengthy introductions, but those animations gave you a good idea of what each merc was capable of and their general playstyle. Deadlock has positioned itself in a unique way. Its characters are both full of charm and style, with a vast potential to make something endearing from them. It would be foolish to not make shorts of these characters in action doing their thing. Inspire people to get them in the door, do the missions, play the casual mode, and then they're hooked on the main game. That's an onboarding experience. I believe this is the way forward for both Deadlock and MOBAs as a whole. It's not that MOBAs fail because they're bad games, but rather that they don't really teach you how to play. 2 decades with little to no competition. Deadlock has the chance to change this. To take the complexity of a MOBA and reorganize it again into something new. Movement, style, character, charm can be accessible without compromise. But potential is not enough. The item system must evolve, the experience must be streamlined, and new players must be taught by the game itself, not thrown to the wolves. These are the lessons learned from every failed contender. If Deadlock succeeds, it won't be by copying Dota 2 or League, but by giving new players a way into the genre. Valve has the talent and the money to make it happen. They don't make games lightly. If Deadlock can overcome the genre's greatest barrier, then it may not just be another MOBA. It might be the MOBA you can finally get into. If you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching. This has been Game DNA. Stay smart, doubt what you know, and have fun.